Welcome to the Vault XL, and thank you for joining me. I will be bringing you news updates pertaining to events that have taken place here in the U.S. One of my updates will be pertaining to Donald Trump. He is facing a new indictment. I will also bring you an update pertaining to Lori Vallow, who will be able to speak at her sentencing. Also, Friday marked the anniversary. The children being found on Daybell's property, Mr. Chad Daybell's property. And also the Unabomber has passed away in prison at the age of 81. I will bring you those said updates. Let's start with Mr. Donald Trump's reaction to this second indictment. Thank you for your time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. One moment, please. Hello, Lolo. How are you? Thank you for joining me. Happy Saturday to everyone. Please stay safe this weekend when you're out venturing. ABC News is the source.
And John, as to be expected, we wondered if this would happen, and it has played out. The former president confirming himself that he and his attorneys have been informed. He writes that I have been indicted.
David, a very lengthy post from Donald Trump on his social media platform, Truth Social. It's extremely long. He goes on to say he never thought this was possible, calls it a dark day. But David, I can tell you from my sources that have been around the former president for much of the last week, they very much thought this was possible. They have been huddled in Bedminster, New Jersey, where the former president spends his summers, waiting for this today. They have been anxious. They were watching news coverage yesterday. Trump's former spokesperson, Taylor Budowich, going before that grand jury down in southern Florida. And David, that's a bit of a mystery to the Trump team. You know, they've been watching friends, allies, and now enemies of the former president go before a grand jury in Washington, D.C. that's been hearing the presentations by special counsel Jack Smith for the better part of a year. But only up until the last couple of days, few weeks even, did Team Trump learn about this other grand jury. And we believe, David, as we reported here on your show last night, it was when Team Trump received that target letter in just the last couple of weeks that they were told by special counsel Jack Smith that the former president was indeed a target of that investigation. I am told by my sources that the president for the last couple of days has just been waiting for this, knowing it was coming. He joked to one aide, another one, of course, referring to his first indictment in Manhattan earlier this year. And we know that they are already planning a trip down to Miami, David. We are told from one source they are looking at some sort of a campaign event around it, thinking that another indictment will do something better for Donald Trump's chances at a third bid at the White House.
I want to go back, John, to that one point you made. You reported here on World News Tonight just earlier this week about that letter that Donald Trump received, he and his lawyers. I think to a lot of our viewers, that would sound almost obvious after months and months of reporting on this investigation, but that was essentially their sort of official signal from the special counsel that this could very well be coming, and now it's played out tonight.
The official signal for sure, David. I mean, a target letter from a federal prosecutor lets you know that you are indeed just that. You are a target. We are looking to indict you on charges. But obviously, David, as you know, it's not a surprise. Between the many people that have gone before the grand jury, many people that received document retention letters for subpoenas, and let's not forget, David, federal investigators have been to Donald Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago multiple times. And obviously the big one we all saw nearly a year ago, last August, where federal agents raided Mar-a-Lago looking for documents, looking for records. And as our team has reported, they found hundreds, David.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
All right, everybody. ABC News is the source. So, federal prosecutors seeking a second indictment against the former President Donald Trump. Will they stand? That's the issue. You've waited years to do this. Many people will feel that these were things that should have been done early on, certain things that were done by Mr. Trump that were unethical, and he was voted in. You didn't bring forth any charges of certain behavior beforehand. And then afterwards, as time goes by, you're finding out that he had documents down there in Florida at his home. And now we have a second indictment on the table, but will they stand? That's my issue. Will they stand? And will he get time if he's actually found guilty of the said charges in both indictments? That's my first update. Thank you for joining me. A lot of updates today, everybody. The main topics are Joran van der Sloot. He has been extradited back to the U.S. and he has pled not guilty in a fraud case, and Kohberger gag order hearing. We're going to play a little bit of that said information. Thank you all so much for joining me. All righty. Judge in Lori Vallow case rules on who may make statements, victims' impact statements at sentencing. KTVB 7 News is the source.
The remains of Lori Vallow's kids, JJ Vallow and Tyler Ryan, were found. They were discovered in Chad Daybell's backyard. Chad is Lori's 5th and current husband. On May 12th, Lori was convicted in the murder of her 2 kids and Chad's late wife, Tammy Daybell. Her sentencing is scheduled for July 31st. And today, JJ's grandma, Kay Woodcock, shared her thoughts with me on this difficult day. She said, in part, on this dark anniversary, we will reflect on how much love and joy JJ brought into our lives and the lives of everyone who knew him in the 7 short years he was with us. We were robbed of his bright spirit, his laughter taken by pure evil. We are at peace knowing JJ is enveloped in the arms of our Lord Jesus Christ, surrounded by the undying love and dedication of his dad, Charles, and side by side with Tylee, a sister he adored. And you can read Kay's full statement right now at ktvb.com. And when Lori Vallow Daybell sentenced for murder and conspiracy in the deaths of her 2 kids and her current husband's late wife, 3 people will be permitted to make victim impact statements. The judge determined that Kay Woodcock, JJ's grandma, Summer Shiflett, Lori's sister, and Colby Ryan, Lori's son, are entitled to submit victim impact statements and address the court at sentencing. Under Idaho law, they file as immediate family members or as a court-recognized representative of an immediate family member of one of the 3 murder victims. Larry Woodcock, Vicki Hogan, Rex Connor, and Brandon Boudreau also filed victims' rights forms with the court, and you can read much more about this at ktvb.com.
All right, everybody. KTVB 7 News is the source. So the anniversary was on Friday of the discovery of the children's bodies. You heard this information pertaining to Miss Kay Woodcock giving her commentary pertaining to the death of the children. And 3 people will be able to speak at the sentencing, which is July 31st, pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. That will be Kay Woodcock, Summer, and the son, Colby. What will they all say? Death penalty isn't on the table, so nobody has to really plead for her life to be spared. The only thing I could think of a family member that would speak on her behalf would be to say, hopefully one day she could get out, but I doubt that anyone would ever say that due to the heinousness, the heinous crimes committed and conspiracy charges against her for Tammy Daybell, Brandon Boudreau, her husband, and then the murder of her 2 children. That's a lot of people. 2 children, a husband, another man's wife, her last husband, new husband, and then her niece's husband at the time, Brandon. That's a lot of people. And it shows you that she's lucid. No matter her behavior in court, no matter the crazy things she was thinking, her ideologies, she seemed like she was, detached from reality. She knew what she was doing because she's the common link to all of these dead people and the attempt on Brandon's life. She's lucid. And that's the thing about, psychopathy. The behavior is, absurd and outrageous to where people would say, oh, they're mentally ill, they're disturbed. But the catch-all is that they know what they're doing. She knew what she was doing. She and Chad and the niece as well, and possibly some other cohorts. And once again, I do believe Melanie should be brought up on charges as well, the niece. Because without her, Lori really didn't have a reason to exact a harm, conspire with the brother, deceased brother Alex, to harm Alex Boudreaux. The niece needs to be brought up on charges as well. All right, everybody. That's information pertaining to the victims who will be able to speak. Miss Kay Woodcock, the son Kobe, and Summer, the sister. Sadly, these children are no longer with us. And Friday marks 3 years since the remains of J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan were found. KTVB 7 News is the source for this information. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for viewing this content.
Since the remains of Lori Vallow's kids, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, were found. They were discovered in the backyard of Chad Daybell. Chad is Lori's fifth and current husband. On May 12th, Lori was convicted in the murder of her 2 kids and Chad's late wife, Tammy Daybell. Her sentencing is scheduled for July 31st. Today, JJ's grandma, Kay Woodcock, shared her thoughts with me on this difficult day. She said, "On this dark anniversary, we will reflect on how much love and joy JJ brought into our lives and the lives of everyone who knew him in the 7 short years he was with us. We were robbed of his bright spirit, his laughter taken by pure evil. We are at peace, knowing JJ is enveloped in the arms of our Lord Jesus Christ, surrounded by the undying love and dedication of his dad, Charles, and side by side with Tylee, a sister he adored." And you can read Kay's full statement right now at KTVB.com. We also learned 3 people will be allowed to make victim impact statements when Vallow is sentenced next month. Judge Stephen Boyce says Kay Woodcock, JJ's grandmother, Summer Shiflett, Lori's sister, and Colby Ryan, Lori's oldest son, are entitled under Idaho law to address the court after sentencing. 4 others had also filed victims' rights forms with the court, including Larry Woodcock, JJ's grandfather. However, Judge Boyce says they do not meet Idaho's legal definition of an immediate family member and thus will not be allowed to give an impact statement. Vallow is scheduled to be sentenced July 31st at the Fremont County Courthouse.
So amazing how this man is married to Kay, and he's not deemed a relative. And by Idaho state law, he's not an immediate relative. Hello, Brittany. But he raised the child because he was married to the child's grandmother, relative. So it doesn't matter. And you can still be considered family, even if you are not immediate relative of a person. This is basically a repeat of what I just played, but I just wanted to show some respect for the anniversary of the children being discovered 3 years ago, yesterday, in shallow graves on the property of Chad Daybell. 2 innocent children who had a full life ahead of them, and they were snuffed out, cruelly snuffed out by their own mother, an uncle, and possibly Mr. Chad Daybell, for absurd, insane, illogical reasons. Prayers to the Woodcock family and prayers to the other family members, Vallow family, anyone who actually cared for the children, Mr. Charles, Miss Tammy, Daybell. Prayers to all those people, Charles's family. Thank you for joining me. More breaking news to bring you before I get to my 2 hot topics. We've talked about Mr. Donald Trump facing 2 indictments. Lori Vallow, 3 people will be able to speak at her sentencing July 31st. Miss Kay, her sister Summer, and her son Colby. And yesterday marked 3 years that the children were found on Daybell's property. I've also got a Fox 10 Phoenix short piece on my channel. It's about 38 minutes long, pertaining to the discovery of the children, if you are interested in following that. My last news update is pertaining to the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. He was found dead in prison. And we're going to play that by live now from Fox. Thank you for joining me. Just bringing you a little bit of information here in the United States of breaking news. Prayers to the residents in San Francisco. There was a shooting. They believe it was targeted. I do not know the reasoning or why these people were shot, but it was allegedly a block party. So prayers to those individuals. This is also posted to my community board if you need this information. Ted Kaczynski dead in prison, everybody. Let's get that information. Thank you, everybody, viewing 16. Let's get those thumbs up. Happy Saturday to everybody. Thank you.
Actually, this is reported by the Associated Press. Theodore Ted Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber, has died in federal prison. A spokesperson for the Bureau of Prisons told the Associated Press today Kaczynski was found dead around 8 a.m. at a federal prison in North Carolina. The cause of death was not immediately known. He had been moved to the federal prison medical facility in North Carolina after spending 2 decades in a federal supermax prison in Colorado for a series of bombings that targeted scientists. Kaczynski was serving life without the possibility of parole following his 1996 arrest at the primitive cabin where he was living in western Montana. He pleaded guilty to setting 16 explosions that killed 3 people and injured 23 others in various parts of the country between 1978 and 1995. So he has now passed away. He has died. There's a report by the Associated Press here. Theodore Kaczynski, if you do remember that Unabomber case. If you want to get to our first commercial break of the hour, stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody. That is live now from Fox. Ted Kaczynski has been found dead in his cell. Possibly he had health issues, not really sure. But just wanted to bring you that said update. Hello, everybody in the chat. Those are my updates pertaining to Ted Kaczynski, Donald Trump, the Lloyd Daybell case. 2 relatives of hers will be able to speak. Her son and her sister Summer. Kay Woodcock will be speaking July 31st at that sentencing hearing for Miss Vallow. And once again, there was a shooting. 9 people shot. Do not believe that they are life-threatening injuries at a block party that took place in the Mission District, San Francisco. Please go to my community board to take the many polls I've put up. I asked you all a day ago, how much time should a person receive for plotting a person's murder? 10 years, 8%. 25 to life, 91%. Probation for 10 years or more, 2%. And I believe 2 people commented saying you need to get life. You're no different than the murderer if you have plotted the death of another person. I also asked you, did Casey White murder a woman and child in Indiana while on the run? Or did he make this story up and hope to be moved to another jail prison? 15% of you believe yes, committed the crime. 85% of you said no, lying to be relocated. And I also asked you, should LGBTQ curriculum be taught in public private schools? 6% of you said yes. 94% of you said no out of 176 votes. Should cameras be allowed in Brian Kohberger's trial? 96% said yes. 4% of you said no. Let's talk about that. And have you dated outside of your race? 56% said yes. 44% of you said no out of 223 votes. Thank you for taking these polls. I appreciate it. I also asked you, should a gay person or couple be allowed to adopt children? 77% of you said yes. 23% of you said no. 185 votes. Let's get to this mess about Mr. Kohberger. Lord have mercy, it never stops. It's always some drama. Emotions run high in the Brian Kohberger gag order case. Nonstop. KTVB 7 News is the source of information.
Because nobody's really gag.
A judge
Hello,
heard
Jenny.
arguments from the attorney
Hello,
of one
Michelle.
of the victims in the Moscow quadruple homicide in relation to that gag order currently in place. Good evening, I'm Sharon Matzel. Thank you for joining us here on the news at 10. Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle were found stabbed to death in a Moscow home. 20-year-old Brian Kohberger is charged with their murders. The attorney representing the family of Kaylee Gonzalez, Shannon Gray, is asking the court to clarify the current gag order in the case. He says it's too vague and doesn't allow the victims' families to speak freely. That order currently prevents those involved in the investigation or with knowledge of any evidence from commenting about it to the media.
This is not the same world as it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And it is troubling for the media, the ethical, hardworking media. I don't know what the answer is, but it's a serious threat to a fair trial.
Now, that was just a snippet from court today. The judge said he will not make a decision today, but will as soon as he's able to. The judge also heard a second motion regarding cameras in the courtroom. No decision on that was made either. You can read all about it at KTVB.com.
All right, that's the judge in this hearing pertaining to Kohberger. Brief snippet. You can go into the queue to get the said hearing via the YouTube queue. He feel like there's a serious hindrance allowing the cameras into the courtroom. Why do you feel that way, Judge? Because in the end, 12 members of the jury will be the ones to decide his fate, as in any trial. Naturally, people who watch TV, social media have heard something about a case. But a poll was taken. I don't really want to go into all that information. I could read it all verbatim, but the defense got a analysts to come in and tally votes pertaining to if it would hinder a person's decision, I guess if they would be fair, if they had heard of information pertaining to the person that's standing trial. And basically she said, no, it wouldn't matter. And the person's making a decision about if a person is guilty or not guilty. Because she felt like most people are going to listen to anyone in an authoritative position, such as law enforcement, the judge, the attorneys, and go by what they're going to bring forward in the case, naturally, and the evidence. That is what you're supposed to weigh in a case. Is the evidence brought forward by the state and the defense? And naturally, it is the burden of the state to prove a defendant guilty. It is not the burden of the defense attorney, plural. The judge also apologized to the families for pronouncing the names wrong of Kaylee and I believe Xana. He said he had been sick and under the weather the night before with a stomach bug, flu bug, and he was barely holding on to his faculties that morning in court. So he apologized to the family for the discrepancies, which is very noble of the judge. But I am very happy that they allowed us to see this snippet of him in court, Mr. Kohberger in court with a suit on, looking around, looking crazy as usual. But this is what people want to see, and that's what the judge and the defense attorneys need to realize. People want to see the defendant. People want to see the witnesses testify if indeed the judge is allowing them to be seen and not hidden. People want to see people's reactions, their emotions, because you can tell a lot about what the person is bringing forward in court by looking at their facial expressions, their hand expressions. People want to see that. Naturally, we're not going to see the jury, but we want to see the defendant. We want to see the attorneys. We want to see the judge's expressions as well. We want to see the witnesses' expressions. But everybody wants to see the defendant. You know, are they sweating? Are they fumbling? Are they writing something? Are they swaying? Are they clenching their teeth? Jaws clench, which we've seen that with Kohberger, and I believe I just saw that here in this video. He's, I don't think he's very happy. And I'm trying to understand why he and his attorneys don't want the cameras there. Why not? I don't want to look at a drawing of Kohberger, and I don't want to look at a drawing of Miss Taylor and others throughout the trial. I want to see how he reacts when they show the information in court. Most people want to see that. When they show those vile pictures of those dead bodies, when they start tallying up all the data from streaming devices, phones, computers. We want to see his expression, just like the jury. They're going to be watching to see how he reacts to the information. You see, a sane person would just go ahead and say, give me a bench trial by the judge and let the judge make the decision of my fate. The judge listens to the information from the state and the defense, and then let the judge make the decision. Why the hell would you want to sit in court and let all your personal business come out, everything that's on your phone, God forbid, any dirty pictures, nasty text messages, threatening text messages, your personal thoughts on this, that, your family. They're going to put all that out in court, Mr. Kohberger. You're smart enough to know that. So why would you want that information out? Because you're a wacko, you're a sicko, you're a psychopath. See, only a psychopath wants to sit and relive everything they've done. Every thought, every word, every text, every motion exacted, car signal surveillance, every movement that the FBI, state police, and police can track him. He's looking forward to that because he wants to see where he messed up. That's why you know he didn't plan this carefully. Killing these kids, killing the target. Maybe in his mind he thought he had, but see, that is the false ideology of an alleged smart person. That's an old saying. Smart people are basically dumb as a bag of rocks. They don't have common sense. They don't have street sense. Common sense. And in your mind, you'll say to yourself, well, if you're so smart and you know how to do numbers and theoretical equations, how is it that you don't have common sense? Because they're not the same. You would think a smart person would know not to put their hand on top of the stove and put their hand on top of the eye because it's hot. But maybe you're too smart for your own good and you have a false ideology of who you are and what you're capable of. And maybe you feel invincible in being so smart, so you think. And I do believe that is Kohberger. He has a God complex. I'm invincible. I'm smart. I'm smarter than them. I'm smarter than most. I've been peeping and creeping around. Nobody said anything to me. So hell, why not? I'll just go walk in the house, kill the kids, come on out. I'm vindicated. He's getting a joke out of all of this. Crazy expressions or not, looking around like a deer caught in the headlights. He's getting a jolt out of sitting in that courtroom. I'd like to know who the hell bought the suit. Imagine somebody came in there to measure him. Oh, who did that? Imagine the person who had to go in and measure Kohberger for the suit. Who paid for the suit, Miss Taylor? Oh, the great citizens of Idaho, I would suspect. Because we hear you make a nice lump sum for defending Kohberger. See, I just thought they got a regular salary, state prosecutors, defense attorneys, for representing said people. I had no idea that the defense attorney through a state office made the lump sum of money that she's receiving. It's a nice piece of change. One thing about it, with what she's going to be receiving, she and her cohorts, you can pay some due bills. You could pay a car off, pay quite a bit of money on your mortgage from the great citizens of Idaho. Imagine that. No rendering has been given by the judge for the gag order, media being in the court, cameras in the courtroom, and people being able to speak publicly about this case, family members, attorneys, law enforcement, so on and so forth. No rendering has been made by the judge. If cameras will be allowed, and who can speak publicly about the case. So what we have to ask ourselves is the obvious. With all the stuff that was being leaked by News Nation and the gag order was already in place, who were these people running, giving information to News Nation? All these little bitty tidbits of this and that and things about the remaining 2 survivors. Who was giving all this information out and there was a gag order? I'm curious. Well, I hope they do have cameras, because it would be nice to see Mr. Kohberger. I want to see his expressions when they are showing the evidence in the case, when they're showing the graphic pictures of the victims, when they're showing the eyewitness testimonies of the girl who saw him, Dylan, blah, 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 surveillance of him running around the neighborhood, the pings, the data, any other witnesses that we have not heard of bringing forth information against Kohberger. I want to see his expression when they speak, because let me tell you something, that's going to show you the true Kohberger when you see his expressions of the people coming in the courtroom testifying against him. You want to see that. I want to see that. So I hope he allows the cameras in. You allowed it yesterday so we can get a glimpse of this fool. And you hear the judge saying he feels like it's a hindrance having cameras in the courtroom. The media has, I guess, portrayed him as guilty. But the point is, people are entitled to their opinion. It doesn't matter what the media shows. I'm still a thinking adult, and I'm entitled to my opinion. And there are a lot of people who are speaking for Kohberger, that despite all the things that have been said about him from day one, there are still some people who believe he's innocent. They're not banking on the DNA on the sheath, the button on the sheath. They ain't banking on data and information about the young ladies in his phone or computers. Because in the end, you are entitled to look at people on social media, download their pictures, share their videos, and not be deemed a stalker. Okay? Not be deemed a stalker. Not be deemed somebody trying to hurt or harm them or plot their murder. Because a lot of people share other people's pictures. Hey, girl, I saw this dude, blah, blah, blah. Let me show you his picture on Facebook. I'm going to send it to you in Messenger. Doesn't mean that you're stalking him. Doesn't mean you're trying to plot to kill him. You just want to share his picture. Or somebody had on something crazy one night at a party. Girl, let me send you this picture to show you what the girl had on. Doesn't mean that you're trying to exact harm against that person. Once again, no rendering in the case. The gag order or if cameras will be allowed in the Kohberger trial. And the judge also apologized to the family for mispronouncing the names of the victims. My last subject matter is pertaining to Joran van der Sloot. He has been extradited back to the USA, and he has pled not guilty in a federal fraud case involving the missing girl's mother, trying to extort money from her to tell where the body of the girl is, Miss Natalie Holloway. Let's get on to this madness. This is some real murky drama. Prayers once again to the Holloway family. And I think it's very sad that it's modern day and we have no information pertaining to where she is. I would assume that she was discarded in the ocean because the island is only so small and there's only a few places you can hide a body on an island that you don't really have access to, businesses or houses to dump or discard a body without being found. So I believe she was discarded in the water, unfortunately. ABC News is the source pertaining to this information.
Sloot, the prime suspect in the disappearance of Natalie Holloway. He's facing federal fraud and extortion charges. ABC's Ellen Lopez was in that courtroom, joins us now with the latest. Ellen, good morning.
Hey, Janae, good morning. Van Sloot is waking up under U.S. Marshal custody and will continue to do so until his trial. I said just a few feet away from him as he made that first appearance here at this courthouse behind me. No cameras were allowed inside, but also there was Natalie Holloway's mother, Beth. She was watching as a 35-year-old pleaded not guilty to those extortion and wire fraud charges. Van Sloot started out by choosing not to use an interpreter in court, telling the judge that his English is perfect and that he didn't need one. Right after the 3-minute arraignment, I caught up with Beth Holloway's spokesperson. He told me that she's relieved that Van Sloot is here in the U.S. after such a long process. Now, the Dutch national is accused of extorting tens of thousands of dollars from Beth for information leading to the Alabama teen's body. Natalie, who disappeared in 2005 during a high school graduation trip to Aruba, was never found. Authorities say he was the last person to see Natalie alive in Van der Sloot.
Let me go back. I want to hear that again.
Now, the Dutch national is accused of extorting tens of thousands of dollars from Beth for
Okay.
information leading to the Alabama teen's body. Natalie, who disappeared in 2005 during a high school graduation trip to Aruba, was never found. Authorities say he was the last person to see Natalie alive, and Vandersloot was never charged in her disappearance and has maintained his innocence over the years. And guys, if convicted here, he could face up to 40 years in an American prison. But first, he has to go back to Peru to finish a sentence on an unrelated case, the murder of Stephanie Flores, before returning here to the United States in 2038. What?
All right, Owen, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George.
ABC News is the source if you need verification. Very busy body, Mr. Vandersloot. He's a big guy. When you watch him being taken out of the car, he's a tall guy compared to the guys who are holding him, safeguarding him being exited out of the vehicle. He's tall. So you imagine this big lump of flesh hurting, exacting a woman who's 9 times out of 10, you know, a smaller young lady, shorter, petite woman. And this guy's over 6 feet tall. He's big. I didn't even know he was that big. Let's read the set information pertaining to Vandersloot. Extorting money. Killed a girl. Old habits die hard, I see. What I'd like to know is, why would Beth give him 1 dime? I wouldn't give him a damn dime to tell me where my child is. Look at here. Tell me where my baby is. I'm not giving you a damn dime. Not 1 red cent. This is ridiculous. And if she paid him money years ago, why are they just now bringing forward a fraud charge? This is crazy to me. The FBI should have been involved in documenting this if she was paying him. So when did he ask her for money? When did she send it to him? This is crazy. When I remember there was an incident with him and some girl in a hotel room, allegedly he beat her up or strangled her. I don't know if this is the same situation, but this is oh man, this is bad. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Wow, what a mess. Once again, prayers for the 9 people injured in a targeted San Francisco Mission District shooting. And there's a lot going on with the Young Thug trial. I didn't mention that either. But allegedly, Young Thug and Gunner reportedly added to the prosecution's witness list in this YSL RICO case. And this deputy's lust creates a Shakespearean drama in the case. Somebody was coexisting with one of the other guys in the case. Some type of relationship, just a bunch of mess. And then Mr. Gunner has addressed snitching allegations in his Bread and Butter song, new release of a song. Fox8.com is my source. The main suspect in the 2005 disappearance of U.S. student Natalie Holloway was expected to be handed over to U.S. officials in Peru and flown to the United States on Thursday, roughly a month after both countries agreed on his extradition. Joran Vandersloot is wanted in the U.S. on 1 count each of extortion and wire fraud, the only charges to have ever linked the Dutch citizen to Holloway's disappearance on the Caribbean island of Aruba. His extradition moved forward after a Peruvian judge on Tuesday affirmed the government's decision to temporarily transfer custody to U.S. authorities. Peruvian authorities transferred Joran Vandersloot early Thursday from a prison in the outskirts of Lima, Peru's capital, to the airport to complete the extradition process. Vandersloot has been serving a 28-year sentence for the murder of a Peruvian woman. Authorities over the weekend moved him from a maximum security prison in the Andes to the detention facility in Lima. It was not immediately clear when he would make his first court appearance in the U.S. Well, he has. Holloway, who lived in suburban Birmingham, Alabama, was 18 when she vanished during a trip with classmates to Aruba. She was last seen leaving a bar with Vandersloot, who was a student at an international school on the island. Vandersloot was identified as a suspect and detained weeks later, along with 2 Surinamese brothers. Very interesting. And I did not know that he was a student at a school on the island at that time. So that's new information I had not known before. Holloway's body was never found, and no charges were filed in the case. A judge later declared Holloway dead. The federal charges filed in Alabama against Vandersloot stemmed from an accusation that he tried to extort the Holloway family in 2010, promising to lead them to her body in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars. A grand jury indicted him that year on one count each of wire fraud and extortion. Okay, so here we have the information that in 2010, he was promising to lead them to her body in exchange for money. A grand jury indicted him that year. Okay, because I had not heard much, I had not kept up with this Holloway case. So he was indicted on this at that same year for wire fraud and extortion. Holloway's mysterious disappearance sparked years of news coverage and countless true crime podcasts. Vandersloot in 2012, this is 2 years later, pleaded guilty in Peru to murdering 21-year-old Stephanie Flores, a business student from a prominent Peruvian family. She was killed in 2010, 5 years to the day after Holloway's disappearance. Now, what are the odds of that? Killed in 2010, 5 years to the day of Holloway's disappearance. A 2001 treaty between Peru and the U.S. allows a suspect to be temporarily extradited to face trial in the other country. Vandersloot's attorney, Maximo Altaz, indicated his client would not challenge his extradition, but that changed Monday when he filed a writ of habeas corpus. A judge ruled against Vandersloot the following day. The time that Vandersloot ends up spending in the U.S. will be extended until the conclusion of the criminal proceedings, including the appeal process, should there be one, according to a resolution published in Peru's Federal Register. The resolution also states that U.S. authorities agreed to return Vandersloot to the custody of Peru afterward. Fox 8 is the source. So he's killed a woman across the seas. It's very intriguing. She comes from a wealthy family. He was serving 28 years for the murder of this woman. And Peru and America have come to a conclusion and an agreement to allow him to be extradited back, which he is now back on American soil. He's been accused of harming Miss Holloway, Natalie Holloway, and she has been presumed dead by a judge. He was identified weeks later along with two Surinamese brothers. No more information about them and their involvement in the case. He tried to extort money from the Holloway family in 2010, promising to lead them to her body in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Grand jury indicted him that year on one count. 2010 is not 2023. That was 13 years ago. So why would you indict him in 2010 and just now get him here 13? So you mean to tell me it took 13 years for Peru to get an agreement with America to transport fugitive suspects from either jurisdiction to and fro? Is that what's being said? Some people will be happy with just this charge here, because sometimes that's what happens with criminals. They do one thing, such as murder, and they never get tried, indicted for the said murder charge, attempted murder, which is whatsoever. But they commit other crimes along the way in their journey of life. And they end up being indicted and found guilty of those said charges, which happened with O.J. Simpson. Many people after the fact believe he did kill Nicole and her friend Ronald Goldman. And then years later, he busts into a hotel room trying to retrieve his memorabilia, and he gets quite a few years in prison. Naturally not compensatory to murdering two human beings, but some, I'm sure, were pleased that he was in prison for the time that he spent. So now you factor in this mess with this fool here. Serving a 28-year sentence for killing a woman overseas. exacting behavior that we had suspected he had done to Miss Natalie Holloway. And now we have information of a fraud case, wire fraud, of trying to extort money from her parents, family members to say, oh yeah, I'll tell you where she is. So did they pay him? That's what I'd like to know, because this audio I played said he extorted money. So how much did they pay, or if any? Because it's all like present tense. Federal charges filed in Alabama against Vander Sloot stem from an accusation that he tried, to extort. So they didn't pay him anything. I'll make sure I read everything carefully as not to give the wrong information. He tried to extort the Holloway family in 2010, promising to lead them to her body. So what happened? He found what? Her email? How did you find that? How did he find her to contact her? This is what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand all this. Mr. Vander Sloot, how did you reach out to Beth to try to extort money from her? Make sure I'm clearing my information. You had your attorney reach out to her attorney, what? You all exchange phone numbers? Because I'm trying to understand, how can you extort or try to extort something from someone when, one, you were not in the United States. You weren't living in the United States. So how did you contact Beth to try to extort her for money and giving information about where her child is? And if they have you on record sending any type of information, phone calls, text messages, whatever, emails, then you're guilty. Because if you don't know anything, you didn't kill her child, you don't have any reason to be talking to her at all. Just to say, I'm so sorry for the disappearance of your daughter, but I didn't hurt her. So what I'd like to know is, what did you do to her and where did you dispose of her body? And did you have help from the other two guys? Because all of you all were seen, I believe, leaving with her from a bar that night. And I wish she never left with you. But she was young, innocent. We all make mistakes going places with people we don't know, strangers, inviting them to our house or friends' houses. And this is what people have to understand about being around people you don't know. You don't know them. Maybe in her mind, she thought she was safe because she was on an island. But we have learned now, nowhere is safe, obviously. Doesn't matter if you're on an island or not. If somebody is sick in the head, they don't care about killing you on the island, on the cruise ship. Because in your mind, you'll think these are the places a person wouldn't think to kill a person. Because there's only a few of us on the island. There's only a handful of us on the ship. But hell, a couple of hundred people on the ship, that's enough people, hey, to say, how do you know who did it? Same thing with the island. May only be a couple thousand people, but that's a lot of people against one victim. Did he kill her with those two guys? Did they help kill Natalie Holloway with this Mr. Vander Sloot? How did he kill her? Was he making sexual advances? She said no. Did he and these guys try to play funny games with her by sexual assault? Because we know there are guys who have that type of mentality. So I'd like to know, were these other two guys, were they also students at this school where he was attending? And how long was he a student at this school? Because I didn't even know he was attending a school there. You know, the case is so old now, I can't remember all the details. So were these guys students there, or he just met them briefly on the island that night? Or what was really his relationship with the two guys? Oh, okay. Somebody in the chat said she flew to where he was to get him to sign a contract to show where Natalie's body was. Right. But why is it taking so long to get him over here for the said charges? If he was indicted the same year, naturally it would have to been a jurisdiction issue. But Peru and the U.S. have now signed a pact to where they will exchange fugitive suspects that are involved in alleged crimes. Thank the Lord for that. Because many countries do not extradite citizens who are investigated or charged in a crime. in another country. What happened to Nally Holloway? Did he kill her? And if he killed her, how did he kill her? Did he have help by these guys or anybody else, family members, whomever? And where did he dispose of her body? Because once again, they're on an island. And I doubt that it's a very big island. I can stand corrected. Where would you have disposed of her to where, to this day, nobody's found her? It only leaves one thing. That vast ocean. And I hate to think of it in descriptive terms of what he did to her after the fact, but you can use your imagination. Something to weigh her down so she doesn't float back up, and you probably go a little ways out into the water to make sure she would not return back to land. Very scary. Very scary information, because many people travel abroad, and it's a sick feeling to know that a person went with the intention to have a good time somewhere with their friends and they never returned back, that they met foul play at their destination and then they're never seen again. I mean, it's one thing to be found deceased. The body is seen with obvious trauma to the body, and then naturally you go look for a suspect. But to not be seen, and then years later, a judge deem you deceased, it's terrible. And we have to use discretion that naturally she was possibly discarded in the ocean because there's nothing left out there but water. So you ask yourself the who, the where, the how. And did he have help? Did he have access to a boat? Did he borrow somebody's boat? Did he steal somebody's boat? Took the child out, dumped her, came back to shore. It's very scary, just the thought. Because as I said, we're not talking about a child murdered in the city, in a town where you can have vast places to discard a body. They are sitting and surrounded by water. So you can use common sense that that's 9 times out of 10 where she was disposed, because it would be easy to find some remnants of her if, let's just say, she was discarded on land or in pieces. A dog or any type of canine could pick up a scent of her, or remnants of her could have been found on land. But I don't believe that anything ever came to fruition to that. It's very troublesome information. But once again, Joran Sloot is back on American soil. He has pled not guilty in court to fraud charges. And this picture of him in the backseat of the car, he just looks a hot ass mess. He's tainted. And I'm sure he's a disappointment to his family. I don't know if they're still supporting him or not. But he's a disappointment to anyone who's given birth to a child. Because naturally, if you're a caring human being, half-assed decent human being, you have high hopes for your children. You're praying that they will grow up to be successful individuals, law-abiding citizens, not a sadist, choking women in hotel rooms and linked to somebody missing a young lady on an island. So his behavior, there's a pattern. So then you have to go back to when he was younger, before he met Natalie that night at that bar. What was he doing in high school and before then? See, stay woke now. You just don't wake up overnight and start strangling women, assaulting women. He was a sadist as probably a young teenager. He's probably sexually assaulted women, physically, verbally abused girls. And on that fateful night of meeting Nally Holloway, he committed the worst of crimes, which is murder. And then he went on years later to murder another young lady, which shows you he has an anger issue, temper problem. Or it could just be he doesn't like women. And there are a lot of men like him. They do not like women. They do not have respect for women. And I won't doubt that he did not have a good relationship with his mother, because that's usually where that behavior comes from. Strangling women, beating up women, verbally abusing women, sexually assaulting women. The male did not have a good dynamic with his female role model caretaker. So was he physically abused by his parents? Because once again, we've learned this from serial killers and rapists, sadists, child molesters, that most of them were abused as children, physically, verbally. They were not cared for properly. They were mistreated, some form of fashion, sexually assaulted, ridiculed. So was he mistreated by his parents? Was his mother a dominant figure? Did he have a good relationship with his mother? Because this behavior comes from somewhere. As I said, you just don't wake up, start strangling women, beating up women, and then murdering them. The hatred takes time. It's a buildup. And possibly he was mistreated by his parents or one of them. Either the father was abusive and he blamed the mother for aiding and not doing anything, or the mother was a tyrant and he loathed her. That's the latest information pertaining to Vander Sloot. When I get more information pertaining to his extradition and upcoming trial, I will bring you an update. Prayers to Kay Woodcock and her family, Mr. Larry, the Vallows. Friday marked 3 years that JJ and Tyler were discovered on Chad Daybell's property. 3 people will speak at Lori's sentencing July 31st. That will be Summer, her sister, Kobe, her son, and Miss Kay Woodcock, the grandmother of JJ. And naturally, Lori will be extradited to Arizona to face charges for conspiring to kill Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of her niece, Melanie. And then she will also stand trial for conspiring to kill her own husband, one of her husbands, Mr. Charles Vallow. And with Mr. Kohberger, he and his attorneys do not want cameras in the court. I also played you information where the judge feels like it would be a hindrance to play. I have cameras, have access, the media to this trial, but I feel like people need to see the emotions and the behavior of the people in the courtroom. Thank you, Michelle, for the super sticker. We've been watching cameras in court since court TV was invented, and we've gotten accustomed to cameras. Because in the end, as I said, 12 members of the jury will decide the fate of Mr. Kohberger, just like what they did with Miss Vallow. And if the evidence says guilty in their eye, it won't matter about a camera being there. It won't matter what the media said over here, over there, Fox, ABC, CNN. Because in the end, CNN isn't in the jury box. ABC isn't in the jury box, and Fox isn't in the jury box. It's 12 citizens who are listening to the testimonies from law enforcement, witnesses, data, analysts, and said persons testifying. That's it. And commentary from either the defendant, family members, friends, associates, the state, and the defense. The Unabomber is now dead. He's died in his cell. Mr. Donald Trump is now facing indictment number 2. And there was a shooting in the San Francisco Mission District. 9 people shot. All believed to be alive. No one deceased. Those are my set updates. And then with the rapper, Young Thug, a lot of shenanigans with the deputy, coinciding with one of the members of this organization, passing information and canoodling with one of the suspects. And allegations that Gunna, his so-called friend, snitching. He's made a song to say he has never gave any commentary pertaining to the case. And that's something I want to speak on briefly. Just because a person takes a plea, that does not mean that they told on anyone else in the crime or that's been accused. What he or she has done is decide to save themselves, salvage some bit of life. So if I'm accused of a crime and they have evidence against me, I'm on camera, they got me in a recording, I would be a fool not to plead guilty. I know it's me. I know I said it. They have a visual aid, audio. Why would I keep saying I'm not guilty? That has nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do with what I did with you, allegedly. That's me. So I don't think anyone should call him a snitch because he says, hey, I'm going to take a plea. I did this. Yeah, I'm owning my part. But as he said, I haven't spoken on what you did and what you have been alleged to do or what I'm alleged of doing with you. There's a difference. But maybe to people in the street, him taking a plea for himself means you're snitching. No, it means I'm trying to stay my ass out of prison. I didn't say anything about what you did, didn't do, and what I did with you. I'm taking my part. Yeah, I'm pleading guilty to what you said I did. And that's all I got to say. And as we've learned with this Kohberger case, you don't have to say anything. You plead no contest. And even if he's summoned to the court to be a witness by the prosecution, he still can take the fifth. And that's his legal right by the Constitution. And 9 times out of 10, that's probably what he would do. That's just a little bit of information I wanted to throw out there. Thank you all so much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday. It's a gorgeous day here in the high 10, and the Queen's going to get a little jiggy a little bit later, as I always do on the weekend. You all please be safe out there. Mind the children. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Wishing you all safety on your travels out here, venturing out, especially if you're going out in the water. Please, practice safety. If you're going out on a boat or anything, or swimming in lakes, oceans, please be safe. Be aware of your surroundings, everybody, and please stay hydrated if you're going to be out in the sun. And also, if you sunbathe, to take precautions with your skin as not to burn. Thank you for your time. Once again, if you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Sloot back in the U.S. has pled not guilty in the fraud case. Will they find him guilty or not guilty? Kohberger gag order. The judge is not rendered if he will allow cameras in the court and if he will lift the gag order for people to speak pertaining to the Idaho 4 slangs. And he did apologize in court to the family for mispronouncing the children's names. Thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you, sweetheart. I will. You have been listening to The Vault XL.